Hi, I'm Isa Tan. Welcome to Asian Agribiz Podcast. Today, my colleague Hatu, Southeast Asia Regional Correspondent, talks to David John Whitehead, Chairman of the Mavin Group, about how livestock producers in Vietnam survived the challenges posed by ASF and COVID, and what the future holds for them when things return to normal.
Hello, David. It's great to have you here with us in this podcast.
Sure. Look, I'm very happy to be here, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you, Ms. Hatu.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Look, I'm doing really well. I'm looking forward to the Tet holiday and resting and relaxing and looking to a whole new 2022.
That's refreshing to hear. David, I remember the last time we met. It was in Dong Thap province. I was with Asian Agribiz team awarding Mavin for Asian Feed Miller Sustainability Award 2019. And I still remember I was very impressed by how clean your feed mill was. So how things have been since then? Has the feed mill back to full operation after the COVID lockdowns?
Yes. Actually, our feed mill has been operating right through the lockdown. And it's amazing, you know, when we look at the size of that feed mill and the footprint that it has, and how clean and tidy and well organized it is. I mean, that really is a testament to the people who work there and how they take pride in their operation. I mean, it really is, the feed mill at Dong Thap was and is our last feed mill that we have constructed. We built it to state of the art at the time, 2018, and it's still regarded as one of the best feed mills operating in Vietnam right now. It is kept very clean and very tidy. And, you know, naturally feed mills are a dusty, dirty environment. But this one is particularly open and airy and clean and well organized. And the control room, of course, is quite small and only has 2 or 3 people who run the whole operation. So it's a very smart, technologically advanced facility, and we're very proud of it.
I see. I believed you. I really saw that.
Thank you.
So you tried to maintain the operation during the pandemic, but at the peak of the pandemic, with all of the lockdowns and the social distancing, there are news of the difficulties in logistics, and companies have stopped their production due to lack of materials. But no one really shared what really happened then. I do want to know if you have faced those challenges, and could you share with us?
Sure, like I'm very happy to share with you. We kept our feed mills, not only the one at Dong Thap, but all of our feed mills, and we have 5, as you know, throughout Vietnam. We kept them all operating. We had some changes in arrangements for personnel. So we had people who were living and working on site. So we had accommodation, we had bathroom facilities, we had arrangements where people were able to live and work together, so that they weren't moving away and back in and creating all sorts of problems with quarantine and other things. So and look, one of the things about our operations is that we don't just employ one worker locally, we generally employ a worker and his family if we can. So often there's a man and a woman working together. So for them to be staying at the feed mill for a long period of time is not such a problem. So it's worked quite well for us. So we did that, you know, right through the worst of the pandemic and the lockdown. So we were able to continue our operation pretty much as per normal. And as far as the logistics issue is concerned, all of our feed mills are different as far as transport in and out of the feed mill is concerned. Some of them are on industrial parks, some of them are standalone. And as you know, the feed mill at Untitled has, access by both the river and also by road. So we're always looking at alternatives as far as logistics and transport are concerned. There have been some increases in costs associated with logistics, particularly the import of materials for our feed mill operations, and that's been a challenge for us. But because we order well in advance and we order from a range of different suppliers, we were able to keep our stocks where we wanted to, and we're able to manufacture our feed and to store and distribute as we need it. So, it was pretty much business as usual for us. There were some difficulties and some challenges, but they weren't major. I mean, we'd just come out of, in 2019, the African swine fever problem. So, and that was a major issue for us as far as our farming operation was concerned, as far as our demand for feed was concerned. So we've just come through that. So we were, pretty well toughened by that scenario. So as we moved into COVID, it wasn't such a big deal for us.
That's really impressive. I like the idea that you employ not only the workers, but also their family to stay in the factory. But that would be a lot of work, right, with the accommodation at the factory?
Yeah, well, it wasn't. Look, it's not so difficult really, because the factory's already there. We have very large warehouses. It was just a matter of turning those warehouses into accommodation. So it wasn't such a big deal for us. The most important part was arranging the bathroom facilities and having running water and showering facilities and that sort of thing. And that took a bit more effort. But, generally it wasn't such a major concern for us. The most important thing was to keep our factory up and running, to make sure we still had people on site who could continue to work the factory and keep it operating. But the issue about families in our factories is it's really quite normal in the provinces, because, factory operations tend to employ, one or two people from the same family. And what that does is give the family a really good connection with the company. I mean, we feel part of the family operation. We start to understand the requirements of children at school and their local schools, and we help out at local schools and other things. So it really is a community involvement, and part of our environmental and social responsibility to do that anyway. And it really is advantageous to us because, if you're dealing with a family, then, you always have the information about what's going on with your staff. So it's really very good for us to understand how people are working and why they're working and how to engage them. So, and it develops a lot of loyalty, company loyalty over time. So it works very well in our operation.
That's really, really nice. But how about the challenges in the logistic, David? You mentioned about the port. Some factories you have the access to the port, some not. So do you have any difficulties in getting the materials during the lockdowns?
Sure. As far as the obtaining materials, particularly for our feed mills is concerned, we order in advance on the futures market usually. So we're getting ingredients from places as far away as Argentina or the US or Australia or Europe or sometimes closer, Thailand and other places. And we have those arrangements organised well in advance. What we found during COVID was there were some delays through the port, particularly for clearance, and there were port charges which increased the cost of importing those ingredients. But we were generally able to because we've been doing this for a long time and we have very good procurement people who have great arrangements with customs and suppliers. So we're able to move through the challenges of the pandemic, although we recognise there were delays and there were increased costs. But we were still able to supply our factories with what they needed and when they needed them. So as far as our production and manufacturing business was concerned, it was still operating quite well.
Really, I was just wondering about the challenges, because many other feed mills and a lot of companies in different industries face that, and it is so good to hear that Mavin has such a good solution to that. But I wanted to talk about the challenges, because now we are seeing the new variant, the Omicron variant. I just wanted to have a heads up to our near future if we face the same challenge again, if the new variant just spread around and causing lockdowns again.
Well, I think the virus itself is going to have variants for a long, long time. I mean, the virus is with us, the COVID-19 is with us and will be. In Vietnam, we've got more than 80% of people double vaccinated now. People are starting to understand and accept that COVID-19 is a part of our life now. And there are going to be people who are infected. There are going to be people who are self-quarantined. There are going to be people perhaps who are in hospital. There's going to be people who have recovered. So, we have to understand that there's a life cycle associated with this disease and its spread, and that we have to live with it as best we can. Now, that's the community side. Now, as far as business is concerned, we recognise the same thing. In Hanoi, we have staff of about 150 in our corporate office in Hanoi. Now, at different times, even over the last 6 months, we've had people whose families have been exposed and they've been F0. We've had people who've been F1, F2, and immediately they go off-site, so they're away from the office. They go into quarantine. We keep connected with them and keep informed about their health and their progress, and then they come back when they can. And that's just going to be a part of life in business now. There's going to be people who are off and then they come back, and there's other people who are a little ill. Some people are quite unwell, and we need to support them all. So, all of that will just be part of the future of business. And what that's led to, of course, is thinking of more innovative and smart ways to do business, particularly in an office sense. And that's where things like Zoom and Teams and those other video conferencing tools have become so important for doing business. All the meetings we used to have physically face-to-face, we just don't have anymore. And, unsurprisingly, that's realised some real benefits in time saving, in efficiency, and we as business people are starting to become more familiar with it as well, and we're quite comfortable, having meetings online and dealing with people on a video conference platform. So, all of these things are still developing, but what we've done in business is that we've just accepted that that's the way things are going to be, and we have to move on and live with it. So certainly it affects our human resources, it affects our logistics, it affects a range of different things. But it's not only our company, it's everybody. So, everybody's facing the same sort of issues, so we just have to deal with it. And the government's been quite understanding of that. And, there have been some changes to government policy, which have been helpful. But also, the big thing for us, the two major issues for us working in agriculture are effect on the environment and digital transformation. Now, both of those things in the context of the pandemic take on a different sort of structure. You know, the environment is something that we've got to deal with all the time, but there have been a couple of major meetings recently where things such as carbon neutral issues have been raised, waste management, water management, air pollution, salinisation of the waterways. All of those things are very, very important for the agriculture industry. And regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not, they are ongoing. So we need to deal with that. And the second one is the government's priority for digital transformation. And we have spent a lot of time and a lot of money in transforming our operation digitally. And we've introduced ERP systems, which really give us real-time data and real-time information online. So we really don't need to have those physical meetings anymore. We don't need to get those paper reports from people because we're getting everything online, and it's proved to be very efficient and very, very effective.
Okay, so it seems that you're all set for the post-COVID era, but David, to be honest, I still prefer face-to-face meetings. Although I'm used to meetings in Zoom and other tools, I still miss meeting people, visiting factories, and I think that you're right. The government is trying to support the companies and the people to go back to normal life, but there are things that it has been limited. And
sure, that's true. Yeah, and look, I agree with you. I mean, my preference is to meet with people. I mean, there's no substitute for actually sitting across the table from somebody and seeing how they're responding and watching their body language and seeing how they're smiling or not smiling. I mean, these things are very important when you're negotiating in particular, but also just general meetings to get a feel for the other person. And I think you miss a lot of that when you're dealing with people online. So I agree, it's my preference as well to meet whenever I can with people physically.
yeah, but I do agree with you that we business people and also the individuals are trying the best to avoid the lockdowns together with the government's effort. So if the lockdowns are no longer the biggest issue, what do you think would be the biggest challenge for businesses in planning forward?
Okay. Yeah, look, I've always thought that lockdowns were never going to be successful. I mean, isolating areas and people who you think are infected with those who are not infected just doesn't seem to make sense to me. So lockdowns, I don't think were ever going to be a successful strategy. So the way to move forward, as I've said before, is to organise a way of living with this virus, living with it, and understanding how it works and recognising the effects that it's going to have on your business and trying to develop innovative solutions to those challenges. And it's not just individual companies who have to do that. It's governments, certainly, but also sectors. I mean, the agriculture sector has been, I think, quite lucky in that we have fared fairly well during the pandemic because, you know, agriculture, the production of food, basically, you know, people have to eat. We still have the same population, so we're still working to provide food for the same people, whereas other sectors, particularly hospitality and tourism, have suffered terribly. So, you know, we're very fortunate in this industry, in this sector, that we haven't had to lay people off, we haven't had to reduce salaries, and we have been able to continue business pretty much as usual, although making some adjustments in recognising logistical issues in recognising staff management issues. So I think moving forward, everybody I talk to in business in Vietnam, all the Australians I know and other Europeans I know in foreign enterprises, I mean, they're all very, very positive about 2022. They see that the lessons have been learnt from the pandemic through 2020 and 2021, and they're very keen to move forward because, you know, a lot of companies have been hit really hard, and they have developed significant resilience now, and they believe they can almost overcome anything that's thrown at them. So, you know, most companies I deal with, particularly the larger businesses, are very keen to move forward, and they're looking at facing the challenges of 2022.
So how about the market challenges then? I mean, from what I've observed, the pandemic has caused a serious drop in the demand of many commodities, and it changed the way people buying their goods. For example, we've seen less shopping in the wet markets, more in convenience stores or online shopping. So how are you adapting to this?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting that, because that was changing anyway. I mean, consumers were moving away from the wet markets even before the pandemic, because, you know, the middle and upper class echelons of Vietnamese society have, that group has been growing, and those people understand and have some information about things associated with food hygiene, with cleanliness, with packaging, with traceability. And they know that you don't get that from a wet market. So a lot of people move towards buying from supermarkets already prior to the pandemic, and that purchasing pattern has now moved to shippers, then collecting from supermarkets and delivering. So, you know, it's been a logical progression. It's just moved a bit faster than we thought it would. I mean, having local shipping, I mean, the local shipping industry has just exploded because people are very happy to just deal online, order online, and have deliveries made online and pay by credit in any, or even by cash in any way they can. So the whole way that people deal with suppliers now has changed significantly. I think it was moving that way before the pandemic, but the pandemic has just, you know, really sped up that process. So as far as big business is concerned, though, I mean, we don't deal in the wet market. So what we do is, when we're producing, let's say, commercial pigs from our farms, for instance, they go to a middleman who then sells to the market, or we use a number of those pigs to then package ourselves and sell at the supermarket. So there's a number of ways that we sort of move through and address consumer demand. Some of it is through supermarkets, some is through our own supply, some is through middlemen. So that's just for our farming operation. And then we have our food processing operation, which is different again, where we're providing sausages and hams and cold cuts under our own brand, and they are distributed directly to the supermarket chains. So again, we don't deal with the wet market there, we're dealing directly with supermarkets. Other products such as veterinary pharmacy medicines, they are sold directly to distributors and farmers. So that demand is always there. As long as farmers operate, they're going to need, you know, protective pharmacy product. And our fish operation, I mean, we have, as you know, a large fish farm operating in Hoa Binh, and we have aqua feed that we produce for that fish farm in Hung Yen. So, you know, that's pretty much a sustainable operation as well. We sell our fish either locally, but we've also successfully been able to sell frozen fish fillets internationally as well. So, there are different parts of our business that use different parts of the supply chain to supply our customers. So, and it's pretty easy for us to be innovative and to move and to be, adaptable to what the demands are at any different time.
I see. I think not only the companies but also the consumer. Me, for example, we have to adapt to the new situation because now it is digitalizing era. Speaking of digitalizing era, you mentioned about the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning Program, right? Mavin has just applied it in its system. So, correct me if I'm wrong. Mavin currently owns 5 feed mills, 1 food processing factory, and 1 veterinary medicine factory. You have 20 member companies and dozens of warehouses from north to south. And in pig production, Mavin has 4 nuclear pig breeding centers, and you're cooperating with more than 100 breeder farms nationwide. And that's not mentioned the poultry business that you're involved in. So I suppose there are a lot of information to handle within the operation of such an integrated system. So how does this ERP tool help you have your company improve the management?
Yeah, okay. What you described is quite right, except we also have duck breeding operations, and we have fish breeding operations as well. So, we have all of those different arms and elements of our business. And that's actually why we need an ERP, because what we found was that, some years ago, we knew the business really well and we knew what we were doing, but we found that there was a lot of things going on that we couldn't manage easily because we couldn't control information flows and reporting. So we looked at an ERP solution because we wanted to identify a system that would allow reporting to and from our corporate office, so we knew what was happening with each of our business lines. We wanted to have real-time information that was passed from our farming operation, for example, to our corporate office as well, as far as costs, the cost of manufacturing, but also the cost of feed, how we're managing our water, everything else. So we needed a system that would allow us to pass information and to have reporting processes that were efficient and fast. And we have introduced our ERP by business line. So the first one we did was Mavin Feed, and then we had Mavin Food and Mavin Vet and Mavin Farm, and then we'll be slowly going through the whole of our operation. So we've divided up our total business into different business lines, and we've introduced our ERP in one business line after the other. So we have a like an opening event and then a go live event for each of those business lines. And that business line is then incorporated into the larger Mavin Group ERP. So, we're able to now have a very, very good and clear understanding of how our businesses are operating, how they're going, what are they doing, where the adjustments need to be made, and we can respond quite quickly. Whereas before we had this system in place, we didn't know. And when you just don't know, it's very hard to guess what you need to do and what you need to adjust. So it's been, so far, it's been very, very informative, very satisfying, and very successful. And we're continuing to roll out our ERP, and we are continuing to see significant benefit from it.
That's great. But with such a powerful tool, I think it's not cheap, right? Why do you think it's a good time to invest in new technology?
Well, my belief has always been that you don't stop investing in your business just because the environment changes. because often there is significant advantage in continuing to invest and grow your business if you have confidence in your product and service, because your competitors will slow down. And, most people under the pandemic were trying to cut costs, reduce expenditure, and limit their operations and wait. And my view was that that is a retrograde step, and it's not a smart way of doing business. And my view, we look at opportunities, and the opportunities for us were to grow through the pandemic, so that when we come out the other side, we are a much, much stronger organisation. We are really prepared to grow and develop and to service our increasing demand. So that's always been the thinking. It's a fairly aggressive approach, and it depends on the confidence of the organisation and the board of directors and the support of everybody to understand that we really need to move forward, rather than being stagnant and waiting for the environment to change. We just accept the environment and then move through it.
Okay, so moving forward, could you give me the best and the worst scenarios for this year?
The best and worst scenario. Well, you know me, I like to be very positive about things. And, I'm hoping for the very best out of 2022. And what I think is going to happen is that the effects of the pandemic will reduce, logistics and supply chains will open up and be faster. There will be much better operations internationally, so we'll have an ease of doing business. We'll be much, much better prepared because we have gone through a digital transformation program to satisfy the requirements of our customers overseas. We have improved quality, hygiene control and traceability, which will put us in a very strong position for our export market. We have very strong relationships with the government, particularly with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and that also stands us in very good stead for new projects. Even through the pandemic, we've looked at projects in Somar, Laicho and other places to develop very large complexes for farming, fertiliser management and small feed milling under a circular agriculture system. So all of those things really indicate to me that we're moving forward at a rate and we're moving forward at the right pace. So the worst case scenario would be that logistics not only slows down but almost stops, which would really limit our ability to deal with not only the domestic market but also the international market, and we would have to look at different ways of operating. And whether there were significant changes in government policy in regard to exports and imports, that would be a significant effect on our business. But I'm hoping that there will be positive change and we'll move forward and be effective in that regard.
I'm not trying to stay not positive, but I assume the best scenario almost never happens. But people would try their best to avoid the worst scenario. So give me the medium one. What will most likely happen?
The medium one, what's most likely to happen? I think we'll be slowly developing and growing this year. I really see, although we have, the last couple of years have been difficult, and we've, our operations have grown, but marginally in some cases. So I'm assuming that we will grow at a much faster rate this year, that we'll have a number of more projects operating, that we will extend our export market and our export customers. So, and that would be about the middle ground for me. I really want to concentrate on some of our aquaculture program to develop our fish farming, particularly our marine fish farming in the south of Vietnam. And we've been unable to do that because of the pandemic and the restrictions on travel. But that's something I really want to put some effort into this year. So I think there are a number of things that are going to happen in the middle ground, if you like, that will allow us to develop. And at the high end, I'm hoping that we will have great advancements in innovation as we move forward.
Thank you, David. Having said that, I really hope that the best case scenario will happen.
Me too. Sure.
Thank you very much for your very insightful sharing. I think our audience have had a picture of the pandemic with its challenges and everything, and what is the way out for livestock producers, not only to survive, but also to make an improvement in this challenging time. Thank you very much.
My absolute pleasure, and I'm very happy to share our experience anytime. I'm a great believer in not only this company, Mavin Group, but also in what the future holds for agribusiness in Vietnam. And I really think we're going to move forward quickly. We're like a horse that's ready to go, but we've been held back a bit by the pandemic. So we just need to release the reins and let us get on with it. So we've got lots to do.
That's really promising to hear, especially when we're stepping into the new year of Tiger.
Yeah, the Tiger, that's right. And, I'm a dragon, Miss Hatu, so dragons are always positive and believe in things that other people don't. So I'm always very positive and looking to the future. So, I have great expectations for 2022.
Thank you, David. I hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Asian Agribiz Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.